right here. Ovary. Makes the egg. Next we go to the
Uterine tubes.
uterine tubes. They start with the red part and go to the uterus. Also called oviducts or fallopian tubes. Fertilization occurs right in the first third of the fallopian tube. Next part,
Uterus.
uterus. Here's the inside of the uterus, here's the outside. So what are
was
we
the
looking
inside?
for inside?
Layers of the uterus.
Perimetrium, outer covering, kind of just the outside there.
Myometrium.
Myometrium, the bulk of it there. And endometrium, pink stripes and the pale pink. The bright red striped area and the pale pink area.
And
Next.
Fundus, the areas of the
Fundus.
uterus.
Now notice where the oviduct enters, so anything above that is called the fundus. The fundus is important at childbirth. It's way up, and then push on the fundus, help with childbirth.
Body.
Body, most of the uterus, and cervix. See the little part that's wavy down here? That's the neck or cervix of the uterus.
Almost all our cats
Next.
are boys.
Ligaments attach to the uterus, holding the uterus in place. So the round, broad, and
Round.
ovarian.
Round, broad, and ovarian ligament. To get the round ligament, we're gonna go right to where the male had his testes descend. In the female, you have a round ligament holding the uterus forward right at that same spot. So that comes out, goes down. This would be a scrotum in a male down here. And it goes and attaches through there to hold the uterus forward, round. Whoops. Next ligament.
Broad.
Broad ligament, all of this here, that goes over the top of the uterus and holds it to each wall. And last ligament,
Ovarian.
ovarian, holds ovary to the uterus. And it's that little, looks like the shortest path between an ovary and a uterus, but it's not the path the egg takes.
Vagina.
Vagina. That part right there below the uterus.
Vulva.
Vulva, all the external genitalia.
Mons pubis.
Fat covering the pubic symphysis. There's pubic symphysis, you study with
Cartilage,
the,
right?
pardon?
Can I see what you
Cartilage. Yeah, that's why it's blue, and then the fat is yellow.
Labia majora and
That's
minora.
the larger of the two lip-like things. That would be a scrotum in the male. In the female, that same tissue becomes the labia majora, and labia minora is the other inside. And then,
Clitoris.
right here, right below the mons. Behind the mons pubis, below the pubic cartilage, right there. And last one, what's your last one? Don't you have a vestibule?
Yes.
That's kind of hard to imagine. The vestibule is this flat area into which the uterus, the vagina and the urethra both open. Vagina, urethra. In the cat, these two join together and have only one opening. But in a human, this vestibule has two openings.
That would be like a minor calyx.
Major and minor calyx. Okay, is this our female?
Yeah, I believe so.
Not very big, but we'll look at her anyway.
We found like 3
Man,
males.
man.
Okay, here, it's a young female, so that's why she's not very big. But luckily, we have already taken the ovary and dissected a little bit, so you can see how it looks like a gland right there. And this tube is one horn of the uterus. So to get the fallopian tube, we have to go to this area that was dissected out, and we've got the ovary on one side, and on the other side of it is the oviduct or fallopian tube. So you see two things here, on this side, an ovary, and on the other side, a fallopian tube. And they're both each half an inch long, just sitting in the same area. So the egg is made in the ovary, then it travels to the fallopian tube, and then it gets into the uterine horn. Here in the uterine horn, there's one on each side. There are many babies, maybe 6, 8. How many, anybody know how many a cat has? Quite a
Not
few.
that many, like 6, yeah.
So that's why we have to have 2 uterine horns in order to have enough place for all that.
How many does a human woman have?
Humans only have 1 at a time, usually.
What are they saying?
Twins are not. Mhm. Twins are sometimes occurring, but humans do not have uterine horns. They only have the body of the uterus. So we're coming here to see where the horns come together and form a body of a uterus.
Don't the,
It's right here. And here's that bladder.
during ovulation, don't the, uterine horns or fallopian tubes switch as to which one releases the egg each month?
Yeah, the ovaries are actually the ones doing the switching, and the ovaries produce an egg on one side, then on the other side. Because the hormones change when the egg is produced, ovulated, so then the other side won't do the same thing. So it's usually just one. Down here is the place where they join together and form a uterine body. And not too far from that is the vagina. To see the vagina, we have to do the same thing we did to the male, and that is break the bones. This is a smaller cat, it's easier to break these bones. Oh. Open it so you can see them a little bit. There's the uterus on top. There is a tube coming from it. What's that? Coming from the bottom of the uterus. I mean, that's not a uterus.
Bladder.
That's a
It's
bladder,
urethra.
and coming from it, I'm thinking ahead of myself here.
Is that the thing running to the kidney?
Urethra. No, ureter goes to the kidney, urethra goes to the outside. So bladder, urethra. And since he mentioned the kidney, let's look at what goes up to the kidney. What would that be? That would be the ureter. So here is the ureter. Luckily, it has a blue vein on it, so we can see the ureter pretty clearly. How can we tell that's not a uterus? Well, we have to go to the end of it. And this uterus has an ovary at the end. This ureter has a kidney at the end. So if you're in doubt, check for a kidney or an ovary. Okay, let's look behind now. We'd sort of already seen that on the male, but on the female, next we have the uterus, and we want to go behind the, open this up a little bit by cutting a little more. I'm going to go behind the urethra to see the vagina behind the urethra. Can see a little better in here. Urethra. And let's see if we can pull that bladder out of the way a little bit so we can follow the next tube underneath. I'm even going to take out this fat. It's just not helpful. Okay, can you see the Y-shaped thing here? 2 uterine horns forming together to form a uterine body there at the end of the Y. Uterine horn right, uterine horn left, body of the uterus. As you go down the body of the uterus, eventually it will join with the urethra to form one opening to the outside. Down here. You should be able to get to the outside through a common opening called the urogenital. I feel like I'm poking a new opening. I got
That's all right. You did it to the male.
no problem. We've got a opening in front of the anus, but I'm not making a connection between the two of them. if we can't see the connection now between the urethra and the vagina, here's the two of them side by side, urethra and vagina. Exactly where the uterus ends and the vagina starts is a bit of a, there's a cervix. Who wants to come along and feel where it gets, feels a little bit tighter at the neck. At the end of the veins there. Feels like it's a little harder. Right there is where you begin the vagina at the cervix to the uterus.
Is that this thing?
Yeah. You should start right up at the uterus and go down to the vagina with a hand on each side, and then you can usually feel it kind of harden at the cervix. And then it should go to the outside, and that's the urogenital opening. Is there anything we missed on her? You don't have to worry about damaging anything here, so. We should note that behind there's three things here. The most anterior is the urethra, behind that is the vagina, and behind that is this great big thing, what's that?
Rectum?
Rectum. Urethra, vagina, rectum. And that's all we got in that pelvic area we hadn't looked at yet. Okay, did we saw the female model enough? Because those are